The earth is what we all have in common. Wendell Berry, novelist. Berry's words are simple, straightforward. We know that each of us today in this room, on Zoom, have much more than just the earth in common. It's likely that we share similar beliefs on social justice, on politics, on aspects of this faith tradition. Berry's point is more about just us as tapestry, as Unitarian Universalists. It's bigger than us. Across faith traditions, across generations, continents, and countries, everyone has their own story. And even stories with similarities are still different. The one thing we have, without a doubt, across all of those things, is earth. We are all born here, and we live and love here. It is the one thing that connects every human and does so completely without judgment. Our seventh principle is as follows. As Joanne said earlier, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are part. There's some really juicy, deep reflection in that. It's acknowledging that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And the bit about interdependence acknowledges that we are not alone in our living, which is great. But those words feel a little cold. What does it mean to be a part of something? The UUA website has a section explaining our 7 principles to our children. And I almost wish our principles in general were always offered in the terms given for kids. We UUs can be cerebral. That is to say, we're a little bit heady. Our language is not always accessible, and I think sometimes in our flowery, often highly educated way, sometimes we miss opportunities for really deep connection. Reading our principles in language meant for our children who are still learning and growing and changing, it's very clear, very to the point, and it really drew up the big picture for me. We believe in caring for our planet Earth, the home that we share with all things. And that's really what is at the heart of our 7th. Now, the Earth does not in any way require humans to live here. But since we do, and we're really lucky to, it becomes our responsibility to do so sustainably and meaningfully. You might be wondering where such a silly title for today came from. If you're a comic book fan, you recognized it pretty quickly. Earth's Mightiest Heroes is just another name for the Avengers, a group of beings who protect the Earth and the universe from absolute destruction, typically from a villain. But what if we, average, everyday humans, what if we are the villain? What if Earth really needs protecting from us? Suddenly, Earth's Mightiest Heroes doesn't sound so silly, does it? We should be stewards of this planet, yet the generations that have come before us, while making incredible leaps of science, technology, and living for humans, have also caused irreparable damage to this place that we call home, this one grand, beautiful planet that nourishes and sustains us, and every living being on it. How can we look around at this place that we get to live and not want to do better, to be better? It's our only home. There's nowhere else for us to go. How do we have people looking to the skies, trying to find a viable home among the stars, when we have one right here that we all already share? We know it's not just about us. Being stewards means caring for the least of us, those of us who have nothing to offer. And that ties pretty directly into our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all things. That means not just the least of us humans, but doing our part to assure every blade of grass, every tiny gnat, Every branch, every tadpole has a healthy, whole place to live. Now, I know that's a really tall order. We can't just cast a spell and poof, everything is perfect, climate change is but a memory, and the earth is cruising around the sun full speed ahead like none of the pain and destruction humans have historically inflicted has ever happened. But there are meaningful things that we can do together and apart to start paying our dues and really leaning and living into our seventh. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. Chief Seattle, Suquamish and Duwamish chief for whom Seattle, Washington is named. Sati and I had a conversation the other day as I struggled through what an Earth Day sermon should say. We spoke a lot about the students that she teaches away from Tapestry and the things that they really care about. Kids are aware, she said. They're way more woke than we are. They care so much, and they can help keep us on our toes. Now, I'm a firm believer that children, adolescents, and young adults all have something to teach us older generations. There's a wisdom that they have sometimes that I think that the older we get, the less that we as adults can connect to. But kids have less barriers in their daily lives and can see very clearly things that we might miss. I think a lot about Greta Thunberg, who most of us know from her scolding of the United Nations in 2016, proclaiming, "How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words." That moment was far from Thunberg's first protest, and she didn't come onto the eco-activism scene out of nowhere. She's participated in numerous climate strikes from as young as 15 years old. But even younger than that, she spent 2 years researching and educating ways for her parents that they could lower their own carbon footprint. From not flying, which is a major feat because her parents are internationally known artists, to becoming vegan and upcycling where possible. Those of you with children, I would like you to imagine sitting with your 13-year-old child after watching, as Greta's parents did, your child struggle with depression and seeing them living into an Asperger's and selective mutism diagnosis. Imagine hearing their passionate discourse and actually listening to them about the changes that you could easily make to help ensure a healthy home for their future. That gift of leaning into Greta's wisdom was a glimmer of opportunity for the next generation of climate activism. But she is but one young person, and I don't think it is a mistake that finding names and photographs of young activists from the global south, whom Thunberg has stated have contributed the least to, but will suffer the most from climate change. Those names and photos are almost non-existent. Even after an internet deep dive, I am still no better versed in any of those young climate activists beyond Thunberg. Whether that speaks to ageism and brushing off how adults view the concerns, passions, and fears of our younger generation, or it's the underlying racism of a society which values white opinions over others, or maybe it's a bit of both. I can only speculate. But this is a great time to remember that we do not own the earth. We just live here. And we make decisions today that can and will impact generations to come. We, adults, have a responsibility to make change where we can, vote for politicians who work for climate action, reduce our own carbon footprint in small and large ways. When we tend to live our lives as business as usual, we erode the opportunities for our next generation to thrive. The choices that we make today have but a small impact on our daily lives. Sure, summers are super hot and winters are weirdly cold, but it affects us far less than food scarcity due to climate change may affect following generations. And it's not just the kids that our choices affect. Wildfires, massive snowstorms, increased intensity of hurricanes, continued deforestation, these things impact every aspect of the web of existence. From domestic pets in our own homes to endangered species across the world, to melting ice caps and polluted waters, our choices change the world, for better or for worse. Mother Earth provides for and cares for us, and over the centuries, humans have taken, and there is only so much that she can give. I told Reverend Kent last week, Mother Nature can't protect herself from us, to which he responded, oh yes, she can. But what I meant was, she can't fix the things that we have done anytime soon. Repairing the neglect will take years, even centuries. She can't ask us to stop. We know that climate change is her reaction to the harms that humans have done. Like a fever killing off a virus, this is the response she has to protect herself. She does not need us, but we sure do need her. Let every breath, every word, and every step make the Mother Earth proud of us. Amit Ray, author. So we all know that our actions matter. We believe and know as Unitarian Universalists that all things are connected and all things rely on each other. But how do we live into this principle of the interdependent web of existence? What actions can we take to make Mother Earth proud of us? I've noticed in my time with Tapestry so far that this is something that you all are really good at being aware of. I am proud to tell people that my internship site is a Green Sanctuary accredited site, and you all should be too. According to the UUA, only 30% of our congregations are Green Sanctuary accredited. There's a lot of hard work that goes into that, and it's a huge commitment that you've all made. I also know how meaningful big changes like installing solar panels and eating less meat is for many of you. These are in themselves no small feat. My own dad is a roofer whose company deals in solar panels, and I still can't get him to put them on the roof. Every change helps. These changes help live into our commitment to the seventh principle. But it's worth noting, however, that not every UU, or indeed every person on this earth, is capable of making the same choices. And we have to be aware of the various inequities, social and physical locations, and barriers that indicate which choices we can make. My own example. Medically, I require consumption of a very large amount of protein on a daily basis, upwards of 90 grams a day, which is really hard to do. And it has to be what is called a complete protein, which means it has all 9 essential amino acids, and the gold standard for achieving that is animal protein. It's possible to do this as a vegan or a vegetarian, but it requires hours of planning, and that does not come cheap, both in time or money. Cutting down my consumption of meat is not the most feasible choice for me, both medically and financially, and I have a remarkable amount of guilt around that, and it's not just because living animals are becoming my meal, but that's a part of it. So I have to seek out other ways in which to reduce my own impact, and I don't denigrate myself for the things that I cannot do. I don't drive if I don't have to. I work really hard not to be wasteful. I will reuse clothes and plastic bags until they're falling apart, and I have so many reusable bags I could open my own museum. It won't change this world, but it changes my immediate one, and it's a worthy start. So let's pretend for a moment that we are brand new to this practice. What are some things that we can do that may be more accessible for a wider group of people? Now, we know public transportation is sorely lacking in Orange County. Many a drive from Anaheim to Lake Forest, I wished there was a better way than me, my car, and the 5 freeway. We know food choices are based on as much as financial ability as physical necessity. Many of our neighbors cannot afford to shop organic, and plant-based diets are not always affordable. So where can we improve our impact that creates equitable opportunities or even small changes that we didn't think about? Columbia University published a list of 35 ways to reduce that footprint. I promise I'm not going to give you all 35. Many of these also appear on a similar list from the United Nations. Buy local, in bulk, and try to be mindful of food waste. I know not everybody likes leftovers, but get creative with them. It's a lot of fun. Wash your clothes in cold water when able, and try to upcycle, thrifting, vintage clothing, whenever possible. Reduce your purchasing of what is known as fast fashion, which is mass-produced, cheaply made clothing. In general, buy less stuff. If we don't need it, why do we buy it? Turn off your lights, use energy-efficient bulbs, and unplug vampire energy users. These are things like iPhone and laptop chargers when they're not in use. If you own a personal vehicle, try to ensure it is in good functioning order. Properly inflated tires and proper maintenance can increase your fuel efficiency by 7%. With $5 plus a gallon, that's a good thing to know. Don't fly, but if you must, fly economy and do it nonstop. Now, each of these are small, meaningful changes that everyone can make, from our youngest to our elders, and everyone in between. Now, I know these changes made by one family will not end climate change or any of the dominoed effects that climate change has caused. We won't save this beautiful blue boat home simply by nixing plastic straws and single-use everything. But as Alex Heath, city planner for Los Angeles and a friend of Satya's, stated, the values of a society are reflected in how their cities and their people show up in the material space. One family making changes can inspire another, just as we hope any of our ethical actions as Unitarian Universalists will do. These small changes are things we can be and should be proud of. They take commitment, intentionality, and lots of care. We enjoy superhero stories because we see ourselves in those triumphs. But we don't need their stories to be triumphant. Our actions, like the Avengers, like any superhero, are imperfect, and they will never be perfect. But they are still worthy, still inherently good, and when all is said and done, we will truly have become Earth's mightiest heroes. Amen.